Hey guys, Mr. Backerberg here. In this video we're going to look at graphing linear equations into variables. When we're looking at graphing an equation, a graph for an equation is the collection of all of the ordered pairs x and y that are solutions to an equation. Now the nice thing about linear equations is linear equations always give us a straight line graph. So all we need to do in order to be able to draw out the graph of a linear equation is find 2 points on that line, and then we can just draw in a straight line connecting those points. In this first example, we're going to look at graphing out an equation written in standard form. And standard form for an equation looks like ax plus by equals c. Now we said we need 2 points to be able to draw in the line for our graph. The 2 points that we're going to use are the x and the y-intercepts. The x-intercept is the point where our line crosses through the x-axis, and in order to find the x-intercept, what we're going to do is we're going to plug 0 in for our y, and then we're going to solve to figure out what x value corresponds with that y value of 0. And then the other point that we're going to use is our y-intercept, which is the point where our line crosses through the y-axis. And what we're going to do here is we're going to plug in 0 for our x value, and then we're going to solve to find the y value that corresponds with that. So let's look at the equation 2x plus 3y equals 9. First thing we're going to do is find our x-intercept. And we said in order to do that, we were going to plug in 0 for our y value. So I'm going to do that in my equation. So we get 2x plus 3 times, here's our y value, so we're plugging in 0 equals 9. Now 3 times 0 is 0, so that essentially just kind of cancels out of there. So we get 2x equals 9. And to solve for x in here, we're going to need to divide each side by 2. So we're going to get x equals 9 halves, which is the same as 4.5. Now we can actually write this as an ordered pair. We've got a matching x and y value. We plugged in 0 for our y, and we got 4.5 as our x value. So we can go over to our graph now and plot that out. So we go 4.5 along the x-axis, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have to go half of a space. And then we've got 0 for our y value, so we're not going anywhere up or down. So we can just put our dot right there along our x-axis. Now the next thing we need to find is our y-intercept. And we said in order to do that, we were going to plug in 0 for our x value. So we've got 2 times 0 plus 3y equals 9. Now here, 2 times 0 turns into 0, so that essentially cancels out. So we get 3y equals 9. To solve for y, we're going to divide each side by 3, so we get a y value of 3. And again, we can take this and write it as an ordered pair as well. So we had an x value of 0, and when we plugged that in, we got 3 for our y value. So now to plot this point out, we're not going to go anywhere left or right since we have an x value of 0, but we need to go up 3 spaces, and we're going to put our point right at 3 along the y-axis. And all we need to do is take these 2 points that we've got and connect them with a straight line. So that line that I just drew in represents all of the solutions for this equation. In this example, we're going to look at graphing out an equation that's written in slope-intercept form. So remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. The m tells us the slope of our line, and the b tells us the y-intercept. And we can use both of those values to help us draw out the picture of a graph. So if we look at the equation y equals 3x minus 2, the first thing we want to identify when we're working with slope-intercept form is actually the y-intercept. So I'm looking at the b value on the end. So here we've got negative 2. So that means our graph is going to cross through the y-axis at negative 2. So on my y-axis here, negative 2 is 2 spaces down. So I'm going to put my first point there. Now as far as the slope goes, remember slope is rise over run. So 3, if we think about 3 as a fraction, it's really like 3 over 1. So what we can do with that is from our y-intercept point that we just drew out, we can go up 3 spaces since we have a rise of 3, and then we're going to go to the right one space since we have a run of 1. And then we're going to put our second point there, and then all we need to do is connect those dots with a line. So that line is all of the solutions to our equation y equals 3x minus 2. Now we can also use a graphing utility or a graphing calculator to help us out with drawing graphs of lines. So let's look at the equation 2x plus 3y equals 6. Now, in order to use a graphing utility or a graphing calculator, our equation does need to be in slope-intercept form. So it has to be y equals mx plus b. So with this equation, what we're going to need to do is solve to get y all by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract the 2x over to the right-hand side. So we get 3y equals negative 2x plus 6. Then to get y alone, we need to divide by 3. But when we do that, we have to remember to divide everything on the right-hand side by the 3. So we get y equals, now we can't reduce down this negative 2/3, so I'm just going to leave it as negative 2/3 x. Here we can reduce down the 6 divided by 3, so that turns into plus 2. And now we need to take that and type that into our calculator to graph it out. So I've got my calculator fired up. In order to graph this, we're going to have to hit our y equals button, and that'll bring up our graphing screen. Now to start typing this in, we've got that negative 2/3 x. We've got that fraction in the front. So what I need to do is I'm actually going to use a set of parentheses here to type in the negative 2/3. So we get negative 2/3 x, and then we put the plus 2 on the end. And then all we have to do is hit our graph button, and then that line represents the graph of our equation. That's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching.